I want to talk a little bit about how to scale a 7 or multi-7-figure team for your coaching, consulting, or service-based online business. Now, just for a little bit of credibility, I've helped 27 people get to $1 million a year or more. We've got one person that we've helped get to $10 million a year. Okay, so I've got a lot of experience in how and when to hire closers, appointment setters, the whole shebang, operations managers, client success managers, who to hire, if they're even the right hires for you. So in today's video, it's kind of going to be a bit of a higher level video. I'm just going to kind of talk from experience and sort of share with you how you scale the thing and how you actually get people to join your team and stay on your team and actually like working here, and how you build a sort of a company culture that actually works and where everybody makes a lot of money and that you can thrive in and that your clients are happy they paid for. So let's get into it. Let me talk about the series of evolutions of hires. Okay, so I'm talking to the people with existing services, existing consulting or coaching businesses. Doesn't matter your niche, doesn't matter your offer. First you want to maximize yourself. So maximize a 7 to 8 hour workday. It should be mostly sales calls, mostly delivery-based calls, and then some other marketing activities on the side. So you need to maximize yourself first before you bring on anybody. And this is the first key, is that you yourself are taking the time to develop the skills and actually become somebody worthy of hiring people. So the opposite of doing this would be hiring way too early. And then unfortunately what happens is if you hire too early, you actually end up having to give a lot of ownership to your team. And though that sounds good, in theory, it's really not. You have to pioneer the direction your business is going to go. Otherwise, you're going to bring on a sales rep. There's not going to be enough opportunity. The sales rep's going to be like,
hey man, why don't you just put up a call to action and just sell a bunch of people?
And then you burn your audience, or you run a promo that isn't actually good. They your team will never, and you have to accept this very, very early on, they will never have the long-term perspective that you have until they own at least 30% of the business. They just won't. So if they're a commission-based salesperson, or you pay them a retainer, or you pay them a flat fee for something, or they're a copywriter or whatever, they won't have the long-term perspective. So you must maximize your own skill sets. Get to $20,000 to $40,000 a month before you even consider hiring anybody. You have to get this because honestly, that should be the baseline standard for when you begin to build your team. If anything, you could probably even go further because you want to max out your sales call opportunities, max out your closing call opportunities, max out your delivery call, get clients great results, become just a weapon of a one-man show. Okay, that's the first stage. Then who do you bring on? Well, so all of these roles I'm going to talk about, by the way, they all need to be coachable. Not a single one can be set in their ways. They have to all be coachable. And this is where having done it yourself first is key. Because if you do it yourself first and then you hire, you can then just coach people underneath you to do the stuff that was taking your time, so you can leverage yourself out and then get to $200,000 to $300,000 a month. A lot of people think that you need to bring on a salesperson first or a marketing person first. I actually go the opposite direction. So I've gotten now, of the people that gotten to $1 million a year or more, pretty much every single one credits this hire for getting there and hiring them first. And this is a client success manager, a CSM. So if you're a consultant or a coach, this can be a successful student out of your program that likes the idea of getting paid some extra money and coaching and helping you out. And you actually spend about a month or two sort of having them do your onboarding calls or your coaching calls, or you're doing your group calls or whatever, and you quality control them every other day. You hop on a meeting, review their calls, and sort of help them out. And it's not a light switch, so you don't give them all of the responsibility. You don't just hey, screw it, you take it off my plate and I'm tired of it. You don't have that attitude about your business. I promise you, we work way less harder than a lot of blue collar people and people with regular jobs, and we make way more. So please don't tell me that you're burnt out. That's just so silly. You really have to dig deeper than that. So anyway, that's for another time. Bring in a CSM and don't just give them all the responsibility. Don't just throw a bunch of work at them. Slowly give them ownership and have them earn trust. And that they're doing a good job when your clients mention how positive their experience has been. That's really the only signifier that they're actually good. So, you want to ask your clients, hey, what's your experience been like with this person? And just get their feedback and hear what they have to say. And if it's a positive piece of feedback, then cool, you're going in the right direction. If it's
it's all right. I'm really glad to be speaking with you though.
Negative. That's bad sign. You either need to pick a new person for that role because you picked the wrong person, or if you believe in them and you think they could get better, give them feedback, and they need to be very, very coachable. That's why you have to do it yourself. So you then have the leverage to, when you give somebody feedback, tell them, this comes from experience. I promise this is going to be better for you. I did this. I did it a bunch of times. here's what you're doing wrong, and you can coach from experience instead of, hey, let's kind of figure this out together and see what we can come up with. And like that works a little bit. And unfortunately, what starts to happen is you lose the momentum of your business. You have to be the front lines leader of your business. Just another random, okay? So that brings me to the next hire. So now you've brought in a CSM. You should bring back like 40% of your time. A client success manager, once they're fully dialed in, should alleviate your delivery responsibilities down to like 2, maybe 3 hours a week. Okay, where maybe you meet with key clients or clients in a group setting, or you're going back and forth over Slack or whatever you use for your clients. Okay, for your coaching clients, consulting clients, agency clients, whatever. So a CSM needs coached, and they also need to believe in your mission, yourself, who you are, and the vision of your business. So the next hire would be a sales representative. This would be when you start to hand off sales. And again, it's the exact same relationship. The way you bring in a CSM is the way you bring in a salesperson. So a salesperson, you have them take a bunch of calls, have them learn how to sell based on your recordings of your closed calls. This is again why it's so important that you've done it yourself, that you've sold at the price tag that you want to sell at. This is the ideal price tag for your situation. You've delivered well, you've recorded all of it so you can record and use it as training and share it with these people you're bringing on, okay? But you want to slowly give them opportunity, slowly introduce. If you have, say, 5 calls a day, start them off with 1 of them, right? Just give them 1 for a week or 2. If they close a few, give them 2. And let them earn the opportunity from you. So, by the way, structure, sales, like a compensation structure, CSM, just give them a percentage of total revenue. It's like the easiest way to start. And then if somebody refunds, it comes out of their paycheck. It's like the easiest way to do it, and then they're really bought in. And maybe you can give them a bonus per client, like action item. So, like if a client, goes down a certain action item or achieves a certain result, they get a bonus. If they achieve a certain result, they get a bonus. So you actually have a base of sales plus they get paid per client success basically. And the further that client goes, the bigger the bonus gets, the more attractive it is to continue working with them, etc. And then you can create a really nice financial structure there. That's what we have in our company. And then for sales reps, just give them a 10% flat of cash. So they don't get any sort of a bonus structure or anything like that. You don't want to get too fancy there. 10% of cash. So if they sell a $5,000 offer, somebody pays $2,500 3 times or something like that, they get $250 every time that one of those payments hits, okay? So a sales rep, same thing. You just sort of dial over the responsibility slowly over the span of about a month or 2 months, okay? Now you've leveraged yourself out. Most of what you were doing was delivery and sales. And if you've done the training properly, which is just a bi-daily meeting where you just look at their calls and their conversations, you review, and again, they need to be coachable and you need to know how to coach them, and you should know how, just because you just want to contrast your skill level and how good you are at it to their skill level and just fill the gaps on your coaching calls. So every single quality control call meeting should go something like, hey man, ready to review? Ready for me to give you some feedback? They say yes. Okay, cool. Let's dive in. Pull up a call for me. They pull up a call, you give them some feedback, and you just tell them very straight. You just say, I wouldn't have said that, here's why. So you tell them what to do better and why they should do it better. It's very, very important when you're coaching people, you tell them why it's necessary. You don't just say, hey, stop that. They're like, okay, if you tell them why, then they can buy into the feedback you're providing them, which is very, very important. So here, don't do that, here's why. Often you want to relate it to them as well. So like, I wouldn't do that, and here's why, da-da-da-da. And if you keep doing it, unfortunately, you're going to face this reality in the future. So probably, change that. And really, you're just the biggest champion for your team. Because if your CSM gets paid per the results of clients and your sales rep gets paid to sell, then you're really just helping them make more money. And so that's kind of the frame of mind. So the final person you bring on, so you've got a head of student success, and you've got a sales representative. At this point, whether you're running ads to an automated webinar, you're booking your own calls, you got an organic platform like a YouTube or Instagram channel or a Facebook group, and you're getting calls, it doesn't necessarily matter. You need somebody to bridge the gap between potential bookings and bookings that are on the calendar. So this is what the industry is very familiar with, appointment setters. So it'd be somebody who dials your leads or texts your leads or texts people on social media platforms for you. There for a long time, and I continue to be somewhat uncomfortable with people logging in pretending to be me, so I'm always very careful with that. But especially for new phone numbers that we get for the ads that we run, we've got dialers and texters there, and that's just ridiculously helpful. Same idea there. You want to set up a bunch of your own meetings yourself and really prove out a process, figure out the sort of tonality, the energy you approach it with, and then train from there. And with these 3 hires, and by the way, an appointment setter gets a 5% flat. So you've got a CSM who gets a percentage, sales rep who gets a percentage, and then a setter who gets a percentage. This is how you end up with a business that's like 60% profit margins at $100,000 to $200,000 in sales with these 3 hires. Okay, so some of the common mistakes. First of all, firing too slowly. If somebody really isn't performing, let them go in like a week or 2 and just help them find another spot. Like, don't be too grippy about team. You gotta understand you are the asset, your brand is the asset, your face is the asset, the content you put out, the messaging you put out, your experience, the time you spent in the trenches, that's the asset. If a team member can't catch up, fair enough, we'll help them find another spot. So don't be afraid to let people go. You have to think in abundance here and be willing to let people go and just find another role. It's not really that big a deal to just gracefully help somebody exit and find another opportunity. It's really not that big a deal. Okay, you don't overemphasize that in your head. Don't be afraid to let people go. The second is when hiring, just simply go with your gut. You know, a lot of the time, once you've done it yourself, this is why it's so important to have done it yourself first. Once you've done it yourself, you kind of know what you had to develop in order to be able to be good at that thing, so you know what you're looking for. So after you've done it, bringing somebody on is actually quite simple. It's just like, do I think that they could be as good as I am? It's a very simple question. And they'll never be 100% as good as you are. They're gonna be about 80% as good as you are, no matter how hard you train them. 80 to 90% is the best they're gonna get. It's why you lead the business, okay? That's a common mistake as well, is just kind of thinking that, you know, they're gonna overanalyze or think about who they're gonna hire. Just go with your gut, okay? Another common pitfall as well is I found that people just don't really know how to run their meetings. So don't hop on needless meetings. Every meeting, they should come off feeling like, wow, that was a really valuable way to spend some time because I got some really good feedback. That was a very important conversation. If there's not a reason for a meeting, don't have it. But if there's never a reason for a meeting, then you probably don't have a good enough vision for your business and you're not really leading your team that well. So there's a middle ground there. Don't have so many meetings that it just gets redundant. But if you have no meetings, that probably tells me that you're not clear on where you're trying to get and what your team is doing that's stopping you from getting there, that you can work them through, okay? And then the final thing, this is kind of a bonus tip. You know, this is one of the weapons in my tool belt that I believe is going to help us get to an 8-figure level, you know, $10 million a year or more, is, it's just a simple idea of having a mission statement and then a vision that goes along with it and a series of values that you act in. So a vision is where you're trying to go. So this is a vision statement, right? So ours is to empower thousands of wannabe or existing entrepreneurs to succeed beyond their wildest dreams and make more money than they ever thought possible by getting out of their way and teaching them, you know, timeless marketing, sales, and client relationship strategies. Okay, so vision, mission. The final one is our values. So your values can be things like we work hard, you know, and we do the boring work every day. Or it's like, you know, we are committed to one another and we're forward with one another and we're willing to have hard conversations. Or another one can be like we're very customer obsessed, we're student obsessed. What's the best for our clients at the end of the day? That's what we do. One of ours is no stone unturned. We leave no stone unturned when we're solving problems, right? Another one of ours is we're communicative, so nobody works in a silo, right? If anybody has this mindset of like, I'm just gonna go do my thing, you don't have to worry about me, that's a huge red flag for me. Like, no, that's not how this is gonna work. We're gonna work on this together and you're gonna be very much a part of the team here. Nobody works in a silo. It doesn't work. So you've got a lot of like values. So you just think about what's your mission, what do you actually really want to achieve for the marketplace that you serve in, right? What's your vision there? What's the highest ideal? And then the values are really just the pre-written expectations of how your team is going to interact with one another. So of the people that have gotten to $1 million a year, the ones that have probably the highest likelihood of getting to like 10 million a year are people who wrote their mission, vision, and values early on and rewarded and punished team members by them. So you want to actually create an environment where, listen, these values, we told you these out the gate. When I was hiring you, you learned them. So now I can hold you to them. So unspoken expectations will never be met. This is what values are. Values are sort of the unspoken philosophical ideas, or not unspoken, but they're spoken philosophical ideas that your team has to align their behaviors by. And so if they're not aligning them by them, you can call it out. Say, hey, you're not behaving in this value, right? So the values are pointless if you're not rewarding and punishing by them, okay? And the mission and vision is pointless if you're not working backwards from it. So the mission and vision is what you're working backwards from every quarter. The values are how you reward and punish your team, right? And if somebody breaks a value long enough, you let them off the team because that's not how we work. These are our values, right? And if you don't do this, we're gonna let you go. So this is where you as a leader can really demonstrate how serious you are, and you'll find it's really interesting when you write out your values and then you just reward or punish your team based on those values. Over time, you create this just ridiculously amazing culture. So people wonder how to have a good culture. It's just refine your values early on, reward and punish off them. Don't be afraid of letting people off the team. Don't be afraid of shouting people out who really act in accordance with those values and do very, very well. So kind of like a magnet, you've got positive and negative. If you don't have both positive and negative, you can't create an attraction. So positive feedback, shouting people out publicly on your team meetings. Guys, just want to shout out our CSM. He's crushing it. He's following these values. He's an amazing human being. Awesome guy. Or negative, look, dude, you can't behave like that. That's an absolute no-no for me. If you do it again, we're gonna have a real problem. Positive, negative, and then you create attraction. But you have something actually positive and negative feedback based off of your values. If you don't refine your values, then your team will always be wondering what you want from them. You don't want that. You want them to know what they want or what you want from them. It's like, have it written out. This is your job. This is how we measure the effectiveness of your job. So now I'm kind of getting into operations a little bit, but you get the idea. So hopefully this video has been valuable to you and has clarified sort of how we think about team and hiring, how to build a good culture. My goal on this channel is just to be a great YouTube channel for building your business, whether you pay me a dime or not. See you in the next video, I guess. I don't really know how to end this one, but there you go.